And I now look to the Right Honourable Nicky Morgan MP, ex-Treasurer, St Hugh's College, to continue the case for the opposition.
Well, Mr. President, thank you very much indeed for the invitation to speak to you tonight on this historic debate. The first speaker for the proposition said that this is a debate that has been going on as a first debate for nearly 200 years. That's almost as long as Brexit has been going on. And that is certainly how it feels now in the House of Commons. For all the bluster and all the hot air that we have heard, certainly from the second speaker from the proposition tonight, there are two things they cannot get away from. Firstly, Boris Johnson's government is 13 points ahead in the polls. It is not low, it is supported by the country. And secondly, if they want to test the proposition that the House and the country has no confidence in Her Majesty's government, then they need to support an election. Barry Gardiner, your party, your leader is Frit. Now, for a student of history and politics, the first speaker for the proposition spent a long time talking about the Prime Minister and not Her Majesty's government, although she did get onto that eventually. Because tonight's motion is about there being no confidence by this House in Her Majesty's government. Not an individual, not a particular member of the Cabinet, but in the whole government. And my task tonight is obviously to ask you to oppose that motion, to vote against it when the time comes. Barry quoted from the Bible, but the point is that confidence doesn't mean that you have to like your government or you necessarily have to empathise with them. You have to be confident that they know how to run the country, how to show clear values, how to set a clear sense of direction, and how to address... point of order, yeah.
Do you think that it represents our values in the Union and your values as Speaker, no offence to you personally, that there was a blind member of St John's who was forcibly removed from this chamber in order for this to go ahead, and members on the front benches sniggered instead of address what was actually happening? No one helped him. He was here alone, he wanted his union card back, and nothing was done.
Well, can I thank the honourable member? Because to be fair, what he has raised is a point of order. It's a matter for the President, no doubt, and the committees who will want to address that in due course. But what I was going to say, and I think that that point of order has enabled me to do it, is just to take a step back for a moment from the politics of it all. Because actually what you're sitting in tonight, ladies and gentlemen, is a very special institution. Regardless of who has or has not been president in the past, the Oxford Union has a very special place in my heart as a former officer, and I suspect in the hearts of people who are here and people who have been through this institution. So I hope that those of you who are freshers, those of you who might aspire to take part in debates in the future, those of you who want to come and watch debates, will find that this is a very inclusive place, and you will find your place, your home here over the course of your studies at this university. Now, as I was saying, there are three key tests for a government, and the gentleman there picked up on the issue of values, which I will come back to. But let me first of all say, I've been in two governments, and I've watched a third very closely. And any government fails if it doesn't have a clear sense of direction. And that is what the current government does. Our first and abiding priority is, yes, to get Brexit done. And unlike the Labour Party and the second speaker for the proposition tonight, we haven't shilly-shallied around or dithered and delayed. We haven't said things like we promised to honour the result of the referendum in Parliament, which is what Mr Gardiner said on the 17th of October 2018, or when he described a second referendum as undermining democracy and then confidently just stood there and said, we're going to have a second referendum. That isn't fair on the people who voted either way for MPs to change their minds and decide that democracy is something they can choose to accept on a rainy Wednesday, but not on the following Tuesday. If you have a vote, a democratic vote, and people vote a particular way, it is incumbent on members of Parliament to carry out that vote and to do it in the way they think is most suitable for the country. And that is what the Prime Minister will be asking MPs to do on Saturday. And if Barry Gardiner and his colleagues really cared about this country and healing divisions and everything else that they talk about, then they would vote for the deal that the Prime Minister has brought back from Brussels tonight so that this country was able to move on. But the other... Yeah.
How can the government care to claim that they're going to bring the country together when the second that MPs disagree with Boris Johnson, he kicks them out of the party?
Well, the way to bring the country back together again is to make sure that the one big issue that this country is facing is addressed. And we'll come on in a moment to exactly what happens in the Labour Party when people agree with their leader. Secondly, in terms of setting a clear sense of direction, the other thing that people care about in this country is investments in public services, more police on the street, and in my area, improving connectivity across the country. Getting our infrastructure right matters in terms of your futures. The second thing that a government needs to do is it needs to identify challenges, not just talk about them. It needs to address them and put measures in place to make sure that the answers and the solutions are given. Now, the first speaker for the proposition seemed to suggest that we on this side of the House were running away from a fight. We don't run away from fights. We've been calling for election, and although she may not be in Parliament, although I'm sure that one day she will be, if, as the first speaker of the opposition says, she decides which political party she wants to be a member of, this side of the House has been calling for an election. We're happy to have an election. We will take our proposition to the country. We will state out the Brexit deal that we want and the other issues. We have plans for this country ready to go. It is, as I say, it is the Labour Party, it is the duty of Her Majesty's opposition not only to try to be difficult in Parliament to unseat the government, it is its duty of opposition to fight an election when one is offered, and they have run away from it twice in the course of the last month. The second thing is in relation, obviously, to today's Brexit deal. We were told that a withdrawal agreement couldn't be reopened, that it couldn't be renegotiated. But after just 85 days, Boris Johnson, as Prime Minister, has confounded the critics and done just that. Now, I hope very sincerely that MPs will vote for this deal on Saturday. It would be an important moment in our country's history. And I am dismayed to hear so far the first two speakers for the proposition gaily announce that the deal is not going to get done without any basis for that at all. Because until a vote happens, it's not possible to know. And actually, if they had any sense of responsibility, they would realise that this deal needs to get done so that this country can move forward and start to plan for the next phase. But if you want a completely unrelated to Brexit example, just look at the issue of getting 150,000 holidaymakers home recently. And the reason that you haven't read about it in the newspapers or seen the coverage about it after the initial collapse of Thomas Cook is because the government, officials, DfT ministers, the Civil Aviation Authority quietly got on with it. That is something that proves you can have confidence in this government. When there is a problem and a crisis, we get on and we solve it. Thirdly, Mr. President, a successful government in which this country can have confidence needs to have a clear set of values. They need to know, the country needs to know, that we will defend this country from any threats from overseas or internally. That we will stand up for our armed forces. That we will create a strong economy that does allow more people who are top earners to pay more in tax. And I'm very proud to say that that is exactly what has happened in the course of the last 9 years under this Conservative government. That wants to invest in the safety and security of our people, whether it's in the streets or whether it's online, which is the responsibility of my department. What is interesting, Mr. President, is that all Conservative MPs want this government to succeed. Yes, there are differences of opinion about Brexit and about Europe. It would be crazy to suggest otherwise. But actually what you saw at the beginning of the week with the Queen's Speech Narrative programme is that the Conservative MPs and party and government have a clear sense of what they want to happen in this country. And one of the greatest values that we can have is to be tolerant of differences of view, difference of opinion, but also people from all backgrounds. And I just want to read you, ladies and gentlemen, because I think this says everything. Chen Kai talked about why it was that the Leader of the Opposition was not fit to be the future Prime Minister. But don't take it from us, don't take it from the opposition, from Conservative speakers. Take it from a Member of Parliament who has had 55 years, 55 years, ladies and gentlemen, of service to her party, the Labour Party. And this is what Dame Louise Ellman wrote this week as she resigned. I believe that Jeremy Corbyn is not fit to serve as our Prime Minister. With a looming general election, the possibility of him becoming Prime Minister, I feel I have to take a stand. I cannot advocate a government led by Jeremy Corbyn. And she goes on, this is about the nature of our society. Jeremy Corbyn's seeming tolerance of anti-Semitism would embolden racists, poison our public debate and damage the social cohesion of our country. It's not us who should be ashamed, Barry, it's you. You are serving in the shadow cabinet of somebody who is anti-Semitic, who has an MP of 55 years resigning from her party. Don't tell us that the Prime Minister and the current government are not fit to govern this country and that this House shouldn't have confidence in them, when your party is losing MPs hand over fist, not because of a disagreement about policy, but because of the fitness of its leader to be the next Prime Minister. There are always going to be difficulties and challenges for any government, ladies and gentlemen. There'll be elements of any government that you don't agree with and that you might struggle to decide how you're going to vote at the next general election. But does the government have a clear sense of direction? Yes. Does it have clear values? Are its MPs leaving because they feel hounded out of the party because of their views and their religion? No, that's not happening in the Conservative Party. And does the government, this government, identify the challenges facing the country and address them and not run away from them? And we are ready to face the people as soon as the Labour Party decide to do their duty and vote for that general election. Mr. President, I would ask this House very much and very strongly to oppose this motion tonight. Thank you.